Hey everyone, it's Fred Staab and Les Jackson. We are glad that you are along for the ride. We've got a lot of stuff coming up, Les, including Lexus showing off their brand new RX, which is pretty exciting. A lot of new vehicles coming out, and we're going to tell you about that. Subaru prices out its BRZ, which is a vehicle that I think should get a lot more love than it does, but
yeah. It's a very inexpensive little personal sports car. Pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about pricing on the Lincoln Star. And speaking of Lincoln historian Ted Ryan is going to join us to talk about the 100 years of Lincoln, which is a pretty amazing years of elegance and innovation, Les Jackson.
That's like us.
That's like us, yeah. It's all coming up on Cruise Control. We'll be back in a minute. Stay tuned.
Magazine with co-hosts Fred Staab and Les Jackson. Everything you need to know about will fix or repair your car on the air. Fasten your seatbelts and let us take the wheel. Now, your ride is about to begin. Because you're on Cruise Control. Cruise Control. Cruise Control.
Yes, indeed, everyone. Welcome to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. It's us again. We're here reliably every week. I'm Les Jackson. That other guy is Fred Staab. You've been listening to us now for over 18 years.
Continuously.
That's right. And we haven't changed a bit.
That's pretty funny, Les. Well,
but has the industry changed.
Yeah, it sure has. And I guess when we started, we were talking about horsepower and torque wars and the return of the muscle car and all kinds
sedans.
Sedans. We used to talk about that as the luxury entry-level sedan was the big thing, but not so much anymore. We're going to tell you about some new models coming out, including one from Lexus, the RZ, which is going to really change their lineup. Of course, it's electric. Of course, it has a huge screen because that's what they have to do, right, Les Jackson?
That's right. It's got to be your rolling office. And if you just want fun, you want to look at a Subaru BRZ. They've priced out their new one. And if you've never seen one or been in one, you really owe it to yourself.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. And over at Lincoln, they are, that's not a Lincoln. Over at Lincoln.
That's not a Lincoln.
That's a Lincoln. Over at Lincoln, they are talking about their brand new Star concept, their first fully electric vehicle. And it is the first, I think, of 5 that are going to be coming out. And we're going to look at that. And then we have another story about Lincoln, don't we, Les? With
we do.
A little bit older vehicles, right?
Yes. Well, that's pretty old. In fact, it's 100 years old. Lincoln historian Ted Ryan is going to join us a little later to celebrate that 100 years of elegance and innovation. Boy, I tell you, you just don't realize how much time has passed.
Yeah, it was originally sold for $8 million. To Ford. That's pretty wild, and I'm sure Ted will fill us in on all of that and more when we get rolling on this edition of Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, all that and more. You can find all those links at cruisecontrolradio.com. And I think you look at things like Lexus and that, and I was reading a story about the reveal of the potential reveal of the Ram electric pickup. Sometimes it's better not to be first. It is better to just let others go out there and do that, and then you come in and it's a refined effort. So that's what we're going to see with the Star at Lincoln, and it is a very cool concept. We'll talk about that, and as I said, some of the much older vehicles from Lincoln. when we come back on Cruise Control. Cruise Control is your on-air automotive magazine. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Cruise Control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. I'm Fred Staab. Les Jackson is here as well. And we are just going to delve into our stories because we got a lot to get to. And we're going to talk a little bit about, a lot about new electric models, Les. It seems like the gates have opened and the cars are rolling out, or I should say crossovers, and many of them are electric crossovers. We're going to look at one from Lexus, and a lot of them are taking the same form factor. This looks like a current Lexus. Of course, in many ways, it does still have that fish mouth style grille in the front. It's been modified, of course, because it is all electric. This is an all-wheel drive electric crossover called the RZ from Lexus. It uses an all-wheel drive system called Direct 4, and it says, and right from the press release, it says, a refined, human-centered driving experience.
Okay.
But here's one of the interesting things, and it is the first use in the U.S. at a future date of steering control, steering by wire. In other words, there will be no shaft.
Yep, no connection.
No connection other than electrical. And the controls, the steering angle is set to approximately 150 degrees and will reduce the driver's workload, eliminating the need for hand-over-hand operation at intersections. Now, I ask you this: if you had drive-by-wire, maybe those yokes that we talked about, that we see Lexus has previewed, and of course Tesla is building on the Model S, those yokes that look like a aircraft control, maybe that will work with this new drive-by-wire.
It would, but you still have to make the turns.
Yeah.
And also, I ask you, Fred, as one who drives as many new vehicles as I do, or more, have you ever encountered one that in any way was more difficult to steer than just doing this?
No, I know. I think a lot of this may be something that we really don't need, but that's just the way it is, I guess. This has something called frequency reactive damper, FRD. So they're developing a system that it uses high capacity batteries and silicon carbide power semiconductor elements. Now, a big trend here is a lot of these people are trying to get away from rare earth and other elements that might be mined in a less than good way, let's just say. And coming from countries that may be, let's just say, questionable. I'll put it that way, right?
Not stable.
Not stable, and the supply could change around. So this is the first use of silicon carbon power semiconductor elements in the inverter by Toyota Lexus. It has a range of about 250 miles, although that will probably increase. 250 miles basically gets you in the door right now, wouldn't you say? I would say if you have something less than that, it's really not a viable option for new electric vehicles.
Well, true. But I have some bad news about this.
Okay.
Now, of course, it's not at dealers yet.
No.
But it doesn't matter at the moment because when I go to the grocery store every Friday, it's right across the street from a big Lexus dealer.
Right.
And I happened to notice yesterday that there were no vehicles in the lot or on the showroom.
Well, that's true. I mean, when will
Yeah,
we?
nothing.
I think, on cruise control, we talk about a ton of these vehicles. When will we see them? I really would love to go back on our shows and say, hey, we announced this vehicle.
Yeah,
Did it ever? Was it ever available? And the thing is, when they are available, they might come down in a diluted form with missing systems, and you'll have to wait a long time, and you're not going to get what you really want. But that said, I am excited about vehicles like the RX and
yeah.
others.
This appeals to me. I just like the whole idea. Silicon carbide, by the way, is very common material.
Interesting stuff. Well,
Yeah.
there you have it. That is a little bit about the Lexus RZ. I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot more on Cruise Control. But when we come back, we're going to talk about something a little bit more conventional. It is the Subaru BRZ. A lot of fun, rear-wheel drive, two-seater, perfect auto crosser, and we got pricing on it. So stay tuned.
Cruise Control.
Hey, welcome back to Cruise Control. As we promised, we're going to give you the pricing on the 2023 Subaru BRZ. But first, let's just quickly discuss what this is. It's the only rear-wheel drive car,
Car.
Fred? Car,
Yeah, it's a car. It's not a crossover.
That's right. You actually have to bend down to get into it. But that's the idea. It's a sports car, and it's a really good sports car. It's quick, it's nimble, stupidly reliable.
Yeah, you can do like donuts in it.
Yeah, and starting price 28,000. That's really excellent, and we've been in them. We've enjoyed them. They're just fun and kind of the kid that isn't getting noticed at the dance.
Yeah, we don't know why that is, because this
Oh,
is a
no.
great vehicle. I mean, imagine this as your first car. It's actually affordable too, and that brings us to the fact that we're going to talk about the 2023 BRZ pricing. It is the second generation. It's a lightweight handling sports car, as you said. 2.4-liter Subaru Boxer engine, Subaru EyeSight driver assist, standard Starlink 8-inch multimedia system, and the starting price is $28,595. This is not bad. This is a car you could take out and have fun at the track with. You could have a track day with it. You could do auto crossing with it, right? It's a good-looking car, and it's the only non all-wheel drive Subaru. That's a little trivia for you, right?
And the other thing that I've noticed, I've tested 2 or 3 of them over the last 6 or 7 years. Great, even though it's small, there's great outside visibility.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And here, you can get it with a 6-speed close ratio manual transmission or a 6-speed electronic direct control automatic transmission, which is good news. And 17-inch alloy wheels, dual zone automatic climate control. So it's pretty well equipped. Now, if you want more, they can give you more. And let's look at some of the models they have. As I said, the premium is the base model with the manual transmission, $28,595. On all of these, you would tack on about $1,020 for delivery, which these days,
Right.
Les Jackson, is about the way it is, right?
It is. I think it's jumped up too quickly, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's what it is.
If you want the automatic transmission, you're going to go up to 30,095. Then you can go up to the limited 6-speed manual for 31,95, and the BRZ limited would go with automatic transmission would go 32,795. So all in all, even if you top it out, that is not a lot of money for a lot of fun here. And you asked, what does the limited add? Well, the limited adds 18-inch alloy wheels and a matte gray finish, a little bit tougher look. Michelin Pilot Sport tires, summer tires, heated exterior mirrors, upgraded audio system, blind spot detection, which could be important in this car, even though it has good visibility.
Yep.
Lane keep assist.
You'll need that when you're backing out of a parking spot between SUVs.
Well, you will also need rear cross traffic alert, which is a great thing to have. Steering responsive headlights and Starlink safety and security. I think this is something, I don't know why, I don't know what their sales numbers are, but we typically talk about it being not one of their big sellers. Maybe it's not the Subaru customer. I don't know if you say, well, I want it, I don't want to go to Subaru for some reason. You can
maybe
you can buy it as the Toyota 86, which is, I think, a name that doesn't really fit the car. Like fit, 86 it. I mean, you wouldn't want to say 86 that, but
yeah. But I think it's nicer looking than the Miata, which is every bit as expensive. And actually, it's really an attractive car. And it's fairly low insurance rates.
Well, like I said, I don't know what the performance aftermarket is for this, but imagine some more suspension and bigger wheels and tires, and take this thing autocrossing. It would be a great little pocket rocket for a track day car, and just a lot of fun. And it's just a good looking car. So let's hope they keep selling it. They just came out with a brand new model, and even fully loaded, once again, it's $32,795. And that's with everything all in, so you can't complain about that. Let's move on to something completely different, and that would be the Lincoln Star concept. This is a electric concept, and it is beautiful. The Lincoln Star concept was revealed, and I tell you, it is just the start for the Lincoln brand, because it is they're going to have, I believe, 5 models, electric models, coming out in the not too distant future. Actually, 3 fully electric vehicles from Lincoln by 2025. Much like Cadillac is to GM, Lincoln has always been kind of the technology and the innovation leader, and that's what's happening here with the Star. It is really a design study right now, but you can, just looking at certain elements of it, you can see that it definitely has the Lincoln look to it. It definitely has a look of a vehicle Lincoln would build. It's funny that Lincoln always shows the wide open side doors. They did something like that with their Navigator when they brought that out a number of years ago.
Well, I like that. I mean,
but it's really just to show the look of the vehicle. It's interesting. They have a grill section that sort of pops out so you can load in luggage. They have solar power on the roof and the hood to add additional charging. But I tell you, you look at the roof line, you look at the two-tone paint. This is similar in many ways to certain vehicles that are out there now for Lincoln, and I think it is going to be the star of their lineup. How's that? Did you just gag on that?
So as a prognosticator, you would say this will be the flagship of their electric fleet?
I would say it's the flagship, although they do have other electric vehicles coming out. Eventually there will be probably an an electric Navigator, I would say.
I'm going to predict this. I know you're going to, I know exactly what you're going to say, harking back to another one that they did, but I think they're going to take the Maverick and Lincolnize it.
Wow.
And eventually offer it. Now, I know they tried this before.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting.
But that was a half-baked effort.
I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think they will go fully electric, just like Cadillac is. They will be the first Ford division to do that, and I just think they will probably, the new things that we're going to see from them will be pretty amazing, if it's anything like the Star. And I love how this has 3 rejuvenation modes: coastal morning, mindful vitality, and evening chill.
I'll tell you, somebody's really good at naming things.
It's a spa. It's a spa on wheels. So,
yeah.
Hey, when we come back, though, we're going to look at something a little bit older from Lincoln, and we're going to hear about the interesting story how Lincoln became part of the Ford Motor Company. Ted Ryan, who is the great historian for both Ford and Lincoln, is going to join us after the break, and we'll learn a little bit about that and about who owned this Mark II. So we'll talk about that and more when we come back on Cruise Control.
Control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. We were talking a little bit about the Lincoln Star before the break, the great new concept that's kind of going to show the way forward for the Lincoln brand, and it's pretty exciting. But actually, the other things that are pretty exciting are the history of the Lincoln brand and how it became part of the Ford Motor Company. Joining us, as always, with his interesting background, the most organized guy in the automotive industry, is Ted Ryan from Ford and Lincoln. And Ted, you have an incredible job of keeping this history. You do a great job of it. I'll just say this, a little inside baseball. Sometimes when we go to do these stories, we get like 2 stills or something like that. But if you look up on a Facebook page, we put some of the great photos up there. There is a lot of history, and it's been well documented here about Lincoln. And it's celebrating 100 years, so we figured let's look back at Lincoln.
Well, thank you for having me on. And yes, my team has actually spent the past 2 years digging through the archives, trying to find some treasures. And Lincoln is such a fantastic brand, such a fantastic company, and so many icons associated with it. It was actually hard to choose which ones not to highlight. So, but 100 years ago, Ford purchased Lincoln. Ford didn't found Lincoln. Lincoln was founded by Henry Leland, the noted car builder who had previously been with Cadillac. He founded it in 1917 to build airplane motors during World War I. Very patriotic, and named it after President Lincoln, who was the first president he ever voted for. But unfortunately for Mr. Leland, after the war, he began to build cars again. And while an excellent engineer, he was not a very good designer. Okay. And his cars did not sell, and he went bankrupt. And Ford purchased Lincoln on February 4th, 1922, so 100 years ago, for $8 million.
And if you were bankrupt, I would say
that would be a big windfall.
Having Henry Ford come in there with a check for $8 million would be pretty good, wouldn't you say, Les?
Well, I'm not even going to say what that's worth today.
But
I could certainly live very handsomely on that money.
Yeah. So where does it go from there? I mean, why did Henry Ford buy it? Was he seeking to make a luxury brand? Because before that, he was kind of the nuts and bolts car for everyone, have it in any color as long as it's black. And did he see like, hey, there's a market, people want to step up, just like any product. People want to step up and they want to, get something a little bit nicer next time around. Was that his thinking, do you think?
No, it was actually Edsel Ford's thinking. Edsel's the one that convinced Henry to buy Lincoln. Henry couldn't care less. In fact, he left the entire Lincoln enterprise to Edsel and just said, okay, you want to build fancy cars, you build fancy cars. And Edsel's one of the most unknown figures in automotive history, in my opinion. He absolutely brilliant design. Over the years, he took that what is up now the Model L, which is kind of a uglyish car, and came out with the Model K and the Model KB, which were so famous, and later the Lincoln Zephyr in 1936 with the first really popular streamlined car, and then the Lincoln Continental, the first classic American luxury transportation in 1940, and then so forth and so on. And Edsel totally transformed the way that the Lincoln brand was seen and perceived, and in essence created design classic, which have stood the test of time.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because Edsel is one of these he's more obscure because, of course, he died young. But in fact, I think the company would have been considerably different had he lived. Hard to think it might even be better, but it could have been. He was very innovative, very open to new ideas.
He founded the first design department at Ford Motor Company, and
that's right.
Yeah, beautiful Model A is Edsel's first design. He hired in Bob Gregory, who was formerly a yacht builder, to get his vision on paper, and they created a couple of classics. The Model A, the 32, the famous 32 Ford.
Wow,
you can't even buy them anymore. They're just so valuable, and everybody's out to get them.
Yeah,
I was at the Peterson Museum in Los Angeles last week and saw their beautiful 32s, and it's like, man, classic cars.
Yeah,
good luck.
Yeah, now you think about that, you think of how important Edsel was, because, I mean, let's face it, design is huge in the auto industry. Otherwise, we could just all be driving a Model T. It was a perfectly good car. It just, it was a tool, and design now, that's what sells cars, design, innovation, technology. And if we didn't have design in the automotive industry, it'd be pretty boring. We'd have the same car built over and over again, right?
We'd be.
I agree. I was just in Los Angeles where we unveiled the new Lincoln Star concept, and it's so interesting to me as a historian to trace. And I talked to the designers; it's intentional. If you look at the hood, the front hood of the Star, you'll note that it harkens back to the Zephyr, which then morphed into the Continental with its hood like that, which then morphed into the Mark II, the most expensive car in the world at the time, which then turned into the 61 Continental. There's a line of continuity on the Lincoln Star that goes all the way back to Edsel, which is why at the premiere on Wednesday, we actually showed a video of Edsel talking about guideposts to the future, because that's what the Star is. And it has it plucks a page right out of Lincoln history and Lincoln heritage of design, and continues it for the next 100 years.
Yeah, the brand has been the technology leader. I mean, what are some of the technologies that were first revealed on Lincoln, Ted?
Yeah, excellent question. There was a Lincoln model called the X100, and it was an experimental car from 1953 that Lincoln built that had 50 innovations, some of which did not make it, some of which did. Seat heaters. Oh, there's my cat joining the fray. You have seat heaters, car telephone.
Wow.
A couple of different safety and innovation, and then some of them didn't make it over time, like the variable sound horn that would get louder if you were going fast and softer if you were going more slowly. But Lincoln was, as the premier brand, it was the brand that got a bunch of the innovations within Ford Motor Company. The Mark II just outstanding vehicle. And then the 61, which if I see the Mark II, and that's the Elvis's Mark II that we have on display at the New York Auto Show.
We have to talk about
yeah.
that story in a bit, but
That's such a gorgeous car. I fell in love with those when I was 9 years old.
Oh yeah, incredible. Well, let's talk about this Mark II actually, because as you said, it was one of the most expensive cars made, and this one that was on display at the New York Auto Show has an interesting story, had an interesting owner, but there was a reason why the owner had to buy this, walk into a dealer and say, "What do you got? I need a new car."
It's a great story. Let me first set up the Mark II. After Edsel died in 1943, nobody had the heart to redo the Continental because that was Edsel's car until his youngest son, William Clay Ford Sr., took on the challenge in 1952 and working with a team, developed the beautiful Continental Mark II, which was one of the most beautiful cars in the world. Elvis was in Miami, and his fans discovered that he was there on tour and began covering his Lincoln Premier with lipstick, writing out messages, lipstick and ink, and they were writing telephone numbers and anything that they could think of to get a message to the king. So he took that car and turned it in at the Lincoln dealer in Miami and bought the Mark II on the spot. And I worked with Angie Marchese, the archivist at Graceland. We've worked on this project for almost a year. He drove it extensively. He put 5,000 miles on it. And Elvis was known to churn cars. He was a car guy. He owned over 200 of them during, every year.
And he actually liked to drive. He actually would drive it back. He drove it from Miami back to Graceland himself.
He did, and then he drove it to New Orleans where he filmed King Creole. And we actually have his script from King Creole and the white shoes he wore in the movie on display in New York with it as well. And we did this as a surprise and delight moment to just tell a little bit of Lincoln history, to celebrate the 100th anniversary, and to give fans of Lincoln that aha moment at the New York Auto Show. We planned a couple of these throughout the year, so you have to be ready. There's a couple more coming over the course of the year. And when we introduced the Star, we did our second one where I walked everybody through the history of celebrity ownership in Lincoln, all the Frank Sinatra, P. Diddy, all the different celebrities who have owned Lincolns. And guys, take a guess how many movies. Over 10,000 movies and TV shows where Lincolns have appeared.
Wow.
It's just such a powerful brand.
Well, we're going to be back with more from Ted Ryan. We're going to talk more about the history of Lincoln when we return on Cruise Control. I'm Fred Staab. The other guy you heard is Les Jackson. We will be right back after the break, so stay tuned.
Cruise Control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control. Fred Staab and Les Jackson here. We are glad you're along for the ride. Check us out at cruisecontrolradio.com. We are talking with Ted Ryan, who has an incredible job. And I have to just mention your cat, who has a great pose there. Cat on point, right. Watching what's going on out there. But, we're celebrating 100 years of Lincoln innovation and elegance, which I believe is the line, and I'll use it because I like it. I like it a lot. Some of the classic cars that were out there, and some of the concepts, and one of them, I should say, not the one we're showing right now, but one of them led to a very famous car for TV and movies, didn't it?
It did. The Lincoln Futura was a working concept car. So for your listeners, we build lots of concepts. We just did the Lincoln Star concept, which is a non-working one. But in the case of the Futura, it was a working concept, so it was drivable. And after it had lived its life and had gone around and was shown at car shows, etc., it was sold to Chuck Barris, who then converted it into the Batmobile. So whenever you see the original Batman TV shows, you're looking at a gussied up Lincoln Futura concept car that's actually owned by the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles now. It's not currently on display. And then there were 2 others that were built so that the set could have 3 of them, but the original is at the Peterson. And so when you have your idea of the Batmobile, you're actually seeing a Lincoln Futura.
For me, it will always be about the first one, the first Batmobile. That's the one I like the
always
best.
in speeded up film.
Yeah, when it made the turns
coming out of the waterfall in the cave.
Yeah. And the sound they made of it.
Well, because it was supposedly jet powered or something,
or turbine powered, yeah. Cool stuff.
Did you guys see the photo of the turbine powered T-Bird I tweeted out last week? 1957 experimental T-Bird powered by turbines, 120 horsepower turbines. So
gas turbine.
Amazing photo.
Wow.
I know that somebody did a piece. I think it was The Drive on how you had the Ford Big Red.
Big Red, yes.
Which was a turbine-powered truck, and somebody said, hey, guy came in here and said he has that, and it actually, I believe, still runs, and they tracked him down, and yeah, he did. He had restored it and had it in a garage somewhere. It's crazy.
That's it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about car history is there's so much experimentation. We never sit still. Automakers don't sit still.
Yeah.
You have to constantly innovate, which is one of the hallmarks of Lincoln. When we were talking off air, the new Star concept, there is no engine in these cars anymore. They're electric. So there's so much more space. So what the Star team did, what the Lincoln team with the Star, to create this environment of luxury, because that's what defines Lincoln, was just fascinating to me. And it's conversely, the Lincoln, the Lightning, which is coming out this week, has been turned into a workhorse. So you've got all this extra space on an F-150. How do you make that better for working? How do you make, thinking of your customers, you might be contractors or painters or landscapers or whatever. So how do you, the picture of the Star on screen. So reimagine front trunk, reimagine rear exit. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Every bit as innovative as the Futura or the 61 Continental or the Designer Series. It's all there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm probably wrong, but it just always seemed to me back in the early mid 60s, the Ford Magic tailgate
I love that.
That's always seemed to me that's something the Lincoln engineers must have designed, because it would open 3 ways and you could never figure out the mechanics.
No, I'm still impressed with that. I still don't know how that works.
Same here.
I remember that on our Country Squire wagon. The battle between Ford and Lincoln, I say battle, I'm using air quotes, wasn't really a battle, but they competed. They competed fiercely. So the 61 Lincoln Continental, which to me is the most beautiful of them all, if you put a gun to my head, I'm going to say that one, was actually rejected T-Bird. The T-Bird team didn't like it, and Robert did like it. And so he brought it over to Lincoln, and they changed it. They added the center opening coach doors, for which it's so famous, and changed the design. So just every time you see what I consider one of the most beautiful cars in the world, just keep in mind it's a rejected T-Bird. And I think the Lincoln team got it right.
That's crazy.
Fascinating. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's incredibly famous.
I still like the big ones too. That's the Frank Cannon car. Remember Cannon, the TV series? Right. I loved them when they were big, and I, sometime I'll have to ask you, Ted, when everything got downsized in the late 70s, did they still have a few years of the big cars planned? Had they sketched them out, and then they said, "Oh, hey man, we've got gas crisis. We've got to cut it down." I would love to see some of those sometime about what they had planned for them, but they just couldn't pull off because they had to make everything smaller. And that was a tough time. That was a tough time for the auto industry, because everything was a big hood, a short deck, especially on the Marks, and they just didn't have the space to play with those dimensions. And the other good thing is, too, now you can do that with electric cars as well, and lighter composites and things like that, so you can bring length back in there. because, hey, it looks cool. That's the reason. That's why. Yeah.
They were going to stay big like that. If I can put in a plug for a brand new book that just came out, it's by Jim and Cheryl Farrell.
Okay.
I don't have a web link to give you, but they just wrote the definitive Bible of Lincoln design. If anybody likes Lincoln designs, and they actually we gave them access to the archives. So they had access to 300,000 never before seen photos of clays, design sketches, etc. And they've tracked down all these designers. And it was a labor of love. Jim and Cheryl have worked on it for more than 10 years. But they go through cars that never were. So you can see in the late 70s some of those anticipated larger vehicles. It's I believe it's just look up Lincoln Design, Jim and Cheryl Farrell, and you'll find it on your favorite book retailer.
We should also say Lincoln has worked in the world. They were early take on luxury SUVs with the Navigator, and that's kind of a different part of the Lincoln story. We think of the Continentals and the Marks and all that, but now, of course, it is super important currently to Lincoln because the lineup is virtually all SUVs and CUVs in the U.S.
Right. The Lincoln Navigator actually transformed the SUV market in 1998. It came out in May of 97 before the rest. But if you think about it, an SUV is essentially a utilitarian vehicle. It gets you and your family from point A to point B. You have room for the football gear or hockey gear in the frigid north where I live, to get you around. Well, the Lincoln designers looked at it and said, why not do it in luxury? Why not add the creature comforts if you're going to be in your vehicle for 5 to 6 hours a day, doing all the things that you do as a family, do it luxuriously. And the competition quickly followed, but the Navigator itself transformed that SUV market. And as you mentioned, almost the entire lineup now is SUVs, from the Corsair to the Aviator to the Nautilus to the Navigator still. And particularly in China, where the vehicles like the Corsair, we can't build them fast enough. Earlier, one of the photos you flashed up was a Lincoln Zephyr in China in Shanghai in 1936.
I missed that one. Yep.
But there's a Navigator. So we've had a long experience in China, but that Navigator transformed the way that Americans thought of luxury SUV and what your expectations were if you were going to be in the SUV market.
Right. Yeah. Before that, they were just kind of, basic
just
seats.
Big Suburbans.
Yeah. Basic stuff. Hey, Ted, we really appreciate you being on Cruise Control. We'll have to have you on again. You are the man with the answers about the history. Time for me to say, I'm Fred Staab.
I'm Les Jackson.
We're going to see you down the road.